Well, joining us now are Niyi Akinsiju, who is the Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative, and Abiodun Sanusi, one of the organizers of the Take It Back movement, organizing the protest. Gentlemen, good to see you and thanks for your time. Let's start with you, Niyi, and get a sense of what the government is saying, and different rights groups as well as young Nigerians are also saying. As a journalist, you've covered protests for many years, and has there been a time where there's ever been a peaceful protest, if at all?
Once a protest gets onto the streets, it becomes the property, the assets of the street people. Unfortunately, we have a Nigerian jurisdiction where you have a lot of people that are poor and that are destitute too. So you have people that are aboriginals, on the streets. So such elements are actually just waiting for any form of disruption on the street and joining. And mainly, this is why you have protests that are seemingly peaceful when they start off, but become violent because, of course, these other elements who have no stake, who do not even understand the purposes, and the objective behind the protest will join in, and in the balance that we use, hijack it, and of course, again, some of the organizers, I insist that the organizers of a protest should understand the nuances of protesting. Of it is the responsibility of the organizers to ensure the peaceful conduct, of a protest. So, from what we are getting from the government, there's a consensus around government. From whatever we are hearing, government officers and officials saying, the consensus is that Nigerians have a right to protest, but again, to peaceful protest. We are still scared, coming from the NSAS protest, and we know the kind of enterprise that also turned into. In fact, while people were talking about their shops and all that, what about the storming of prisons? And I am certain that Nigerians are still surviving. Are still recovering, from the criminalities, unleashed on the society during that NSAS protest. Right. Prisoners were released. Ardent criminals were deliberately released and pushed into the space. Most of them are yet to be rearrested, and of course, the average criminal does not do anything, than to go back into his criminal enterprise. So whatever we are recording to now in the area of insecurity would have a direct relationship with what happened there during the NSAS protest.
Right, let me bring in Abiodun Sanusi. You've heard what Akinsiju has said here. Really, when you look at it, the history of protests in Nigeria since 1999, of course, till date, or you might want to say till NSAS, never really ended up nicely. It was always, with violence. That Akinsiju says, NSAS, for example, Nigerians are still reeling from that, still recovering from that experience. And from all indication, more and more groups are pulling out of this protest, saying they're distancing themselves. Your thoughts?
Well, good evening. Well, it is not true that protests have always been violent in the country, in Nigeria, since 1999. In fact, protesters, on average, do not cause violence. Wherever there is protest and there is violence in Nigeria, it has always been from the side of the government, either agents of the government, security forces, or thugs sponsored by government, as in the case of NSAS, especially in Lagos in October 2020. And concerning the issue of groups pulling out, how do you pull out, from something you were never part of? This, the people you said are pulling out of this protest were never part of the organization, the organizing of this protest. These are sponsored groups by government who have been paid to go out to discredit the plight of Nigerians and claim that they are pulling out. No one is pulling out of this protest. We've been, Nigerians are hungry and they are hungry. Nigerians have been speaking up for the past few weeks now about the fact that they need a drastic change in the economic system of the country. And whoever is pulling out was never part of this.
Well,
those are government agents.
if the mic is open, just to clarify, it's really, maybe it's a wrong use of word. It's not necessarily pulling out. They're distancing themselves from any planned strike. And secondly, how do you guarantee, or protest, we still keep saying strike, protest, they're distancing themselves from any planned protests?
Well, people have rights to participate in whatever they wish to, and they have rights to stay away from whatever they wish to. That is a right guaranteed under the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. The right to association, right to freedom of association, right to freedom of assembly, and right to freedom of demonstration. So if anyone says they are distancing themselves, to me, that has been mischievous, because how do you say you are distancing yourself from what you were never part of? It is, we were duly informed earlier today how the federal government has been, reaching out to various groups, religious groups, traditional leaders, civil society organizations, TV stations, newspapers, both print and digital, handing over money worth, millions to them to discredit this protest that is about, the grievances of the average Nigerian. So there's nothing like that. People, there are more people interested in going on the streets from August 1st to 10th or beyond to protest against this hardship rather than, those who claim to be pulling out.
Well, I would have taken this to you, and but again, let's come back to Niyi here. Listening to Abiodun, one wonders how prepared protest organizers are to ensure that first, what he spoke about doesn't happen, hijacked, and two, how do you ensure that what you want to run for about 2 weeks, from 1st to 10th, is sustained in a very peaceful manner? I want you to first of all speak to us on what he's seen in the past, even while a student before becoming a journalist and also a civil rights activist. Before we come back to you, Abiodun, help us make sense of this, Niyi.
Well, you know when a protest starts, but you don't know when it will end and how it will end. I'd been a students' union president. I'd driven,
giving inducements.
I'd driven, and of course, I'd mobilized students onto the road. And of course, we know how it had to be managed. It had to be managed because those of us that understood the nuances of protest, were on the streets, were at the forefront, and as much as possible, we took responsibility, And again, as much as possible, we also tried to avoid blocking off roads, because that is where the conflict starts from. I believe that the natural sequence of protestation is for you to show your grievances by peaceful means, by carrying placards, singing, if you like, shouting, if you like, scream, but as much as possible, do not engage the other fellow. We must also understand the fact that as we enjoy the rights and the privilege of assembly, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, and of course of movement, the other set of people that are not interested in the position we are canvassing, in the public space, also have that same right of movement. So would it be appropriate to go block roads, for instance, because we believe we are aggrieved? And at any point in time, there's always a bifurcation of thoughts in the public space. You have some people for, you have some people against. Is it also now right? Is it rational for those who are against or those who are for to stop those on the other side from moving? So there should be a way of accommodating you know, the other side, and of course, advancing our own position. Well, I had seen a number of, I'd led, like I said. In fact, I remember a time I drove a bus, a full load bus of students to the university, to the Abiodun barracks, back gates, you know. And when we got there, because we conducted ourselves in the most peaceful manner, the officers at the gates came to us and we discussed, we dialogued. You know, and people said, under other circumstances, if people had just come to the back gate of the Abiodun barracks when it was the chief resident then was the head of state, military head of state. In fact, some of us wouldn't have even found a way of leaving that axis, you know. But we conducted ourselves, we engaged, the chief security officer came to us and we discussed. After about 30 minutes, we shook hands and we left, you know. So it is important to dialogue and, of course, to respect the other side. Yeah,
and Abiodun, I'd like you to respond to that. How do you guarantee that in 10 days of what you've tagged days of rage, that you can actually ensure and guarantee that it will be, you know, peacefully conducted without leading to any violence? When you even call it days of rage, that in itself connotes a level of violence, doesn't it?
Days of rage are days wherein Nigerians have chosen to, you know, to showcase their anger towards the government of this country. And it's not just the federal government of Nigeria, but this involves the 36 state governors and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory and other government officials who have been at the forefront of denigrating the people of this country, you know, of stealing the resources of Nigerians and of, you know, laundering the funds that are meant to be used in improving healthcare, improving security, and improving education in the country. So there will be no violence. Earlier today, we met with the Inspector General of Police, Olukayode Egbetokun, and you know, we discussed at length, and the IG assured us of our security, of our safety on the streets, you know, between August 1st and 10 and till whenever we will be ending the protest. And we also assured him and assured Nigerians that the protest will be very peaceful and there will be no violence at all. So we are not violent people. And okay, I'm with you.
Sorry to cut you here. I just want to chip in. I think it's not too late for you and other organizers to have a rethink on how you've been able to couch this rage, days of rage. The meaning of rage is uncontrollable anger. And if you cannot control it, then everything definitely will go all right. So it doesn't look like a peaceful protest now that you have used that word, days of rage. Do you think it's something that can be retweaked and rejigged to go with what your thinking is, if it's truly genuine? And quickly here, when you accused or you said that the government have in the past hijacked similar peaceful protests, could you expatiate and by way of proof show that the government truly was involved in hijacking previous protests?
All right, thank you. At first, you know, concerning the issue of the days of rage, you know, why are we concerned about hungry citizens, you know, unemployed citizens, you know, being enraged, being angry? Why are we not concerned about rich politicians that have been stealing, you know, the patrimony of these people? That is the first question that I will be asking. And concerning your other question, the truth is that our people are peaceful, and we will not destroy any properties. Houses to come on the streets, you know, make our demands known, and once the government accedes to this demand, we'll go back to our homes.
Abiodun, we're being rounded off now. You made a statement earlier that government has been inducing individuals, persons, groups not to identify with this protest. Do you have proof of any kind of inducement? And what kind of inducement are you talking about?
Okay, thank you so much for that. You know, like Mr. Akinsiju himself, I am a journalist. You know, the other presenter earlier talked about the issue of government sponsoring violence. I was part of those who led the NSAS protest in 2020, and I was at Alausa at the Lagos State Secretariat in 2020. You know, before us.
I wasn't the one who said that. You said that, and I was asking if you have proof. So I didn't say that the government sponsored past. So it's a question. It's a question I asked for you to expand.
Yeah, that is what I'm telling you.
All right,
in 2020, before my very highs, you know, a truckload of several BRT buses drove into Ikeja, and you know, thugs were jumping down. You know, they were holding machetes, and they tried to attack protesters. But you know, luckily, we were able to handle them, and we handed them over to the security forces. One of them is his picture is all over the social media, that people have been asking the Lagos State government and the Lagos State Police Command to arrest him and take him to court, but nothing has been done about that. And concerning the issue of sponsorship of protests, like I told you earlier, I'm a journalist, and not just a journalist, I'm a national security correspondent. Earlier today, you know, we got reports that from the Office of the National Security Advisor, over $45 million have been spent on mobilizing people to counter this forthcoming protest. You know, members of the Christian Association.
Allegation. Do you have proof? I mean, beyond just hearing.
Yeah, I do, but my sources are anonymous. I'm not supposed to mention my sources here. Yes, right. You know, religious leaders, traditional leaders, civil society organizations, you know, social media influencers, especially newspaper platforms and television stations have been induced, and this is on this.
You can be sure that the rise is not being induced in any way or form. Akinsiju, we really have to leave it here, unfortunately, unless, of course, you have something to say in 30 seconds.
I know
about
that
this particular claim.
The estimated losses for this protest is placed at 400 billion naira a day.
We'll have to leave it there. It's a good place to leave it. Niyi Akinsiju is chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative, and Abiodun Sanusi, activist and journalist. Of course, he's pro-protest. He's of the Take It Back movement. Thank you, both of you, for joining us on Newsnight.